I had noticed that there was this overthinking loop that was going on in my life that was preventing me from taking the action that I needed to take in order to move forward in life. Or if I did take action, then I would notice that the action was very limiting, where it just kept me maybe a little bit above, but not really at the high goals that I wanted to get to. I was wondering what was going on. And at that time, I understood the concept of upper limit, which really changed my life in a great way. Upper limit is a concept that Hendricks talks about in his book, The Big Leap. It's a great read. It's you do have time on your hand. So in upper limit, he talks about how we don't know, like as human beings, it's like a happiness has this upper limit. So we only can accept this certain amount of happy in our life. And say if our happiness were to go beyond that limit, then we find a way to sabotage that. And something happens. And it's not just us in action, it's like literally physically. You can find yourself starting to get sick, or you can find yourself just sabotaging the whole thing physically, mentally, anyhow. And then you stop yourself from going there. What I noticed is that is what was happening when it came to my action taking, because the minute I had this insight and I would take these big actions, something would go wrong. So either I would get into situations where I would get this bad job, a job that would give me absolutely no time to work on my passions, where I was working until midnight and I could barely even touch my personal computer, or maybe my kids would get sick and now I got no time or energy to focus on the stuff that I want to do. I've noticed a similar thing with exercising. For some reason, when I work out, I have a consistent workout thing going on. I either end up getting sick or something else ended up happening. And I was starting to understand, oh, this likely has to do with me upper limiting myself because it's like my body just wants to know a certain amount of energy that it can have. And my me as a whole just wants to believe that there's only a certain amount of money or happiness that I can have. Because if it's almost like your entire life, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And that's what it is about. So I noticed that overthinking was actually a symptom of that, where I kept finding myself in these weird loops of overthinking every single thing. And in that overthinking, because now my ego was taking over, I found myself in this comfort zone in a way, like where the overthinking was just landing me back in my comfort zone again and again, rather than me relying on my intuition in order to expand further, where I could transcend these limits. One of the biggest things that helped me break this loop is by understanding patterns. Patterns are such a good find if you have the ability to find them within you. And if you don't, this is exactly why you need a coach or a friend or someone who has this understanding where they can see you and they can say, listen, I think you're going through a loop. I think you're doing this again, where you are limiting yourself. And I found that within myself, where I found that, oh, I think I'm in a pattern where I'm constantly attracting these bad jobs, which was my case for the past couple of years, where like I went from a good job to a bad job to a worse job. And now, because I found that pattern of what it is that I was doing, I'm finding myself on the up again, which is a good thing. Your patterns in the world, in any situation, whether it's in your habits, where you find that, oh, you have 3 productive days, and then you find yourself going on this Netflix binge and you just stop that momentum. Or it could be just situational patterns where you find yourself in a bad relationship over and over again. Or it could be health related, right? Where you find yourself getting sick right when you're about to have a big breakthrough. These patterns are a mirror where they're showing you a loop that is going on in your life. It's replaying over and over again, just with different characters and different names. But essentially, the same thing is happening to you and it's holding you back from the next step that you need to take in your life. And these patterns usually point to this deep energetic and emotional wound that you're carrying that you need to resolve. When you are able to find that, you will be able to transcend it and go beyond it. So for me, the way I found out about my lupus, for example, I was in this situation where the past managers that I ended up getting at my work ended up being really bad. The one before this one was bad, but at my last role, the manager I got was even worse and literally triggered. Like I got triggered in so many different ways because of the management style and so on. It ended up being pretty bad for my life for that period in time. But I also got a lot of learning out of it, for which I am eternally grateful. So with this manager, when I asked myself, what is going on? Why is this pattern going on again and again in my life? What am I doing where I keep finding myself in this place where I'm having these bad work environments and bad managers, and this is just crazy. And as I asked myself that question, I went into, hey, show me, what is it that I need to know? And as I worked through my emotions around it, when I let all of it out, when I let all of it purge, there was this quiet voice within me where I saw what was it that was going on. So in my case, I had a couple of different things that were going on, but one of the big things that I saw was there were two things. One was that I had always been a rule follower in my life. I did not really break rules, and I was really scared of breaking rules. And I went back to a time where I realized that this came from a wound where in one of my lives I was, and when I say one of my lives, if you don't believe in it, that's okay. You don't have to. It could also point to ancestral wound, right? Because your DNA gets passed down from your ancestors to you. So if they went through something like that, you're going to have that emotion still stuck within you. You could take it either of the two ways. So the way I believe in past lives, since I'm Hindu, we do believe in past lives and incarnation. So for me, it ended up being that I found myself in this ancient Chinese dynasty where I saw myself as one of the king's men, soldiers, whatever you may call it, like a courtsman. I don't know who I was, but I saw myself literally, it was like a scene flashed in my meditation where my head was literally chopped at a time under the charges of treason, where apparently I had revealed secrets to someone else and I had broken the rules of the court or something like that. So there's this wound where, oh my God, not telling the truth can get you killed, not following the rules can get you killed. And that's where that was coming from. That was one of my shadows that I saw and had to accept the fact that it is okay to not have to explain your life to everybody else and for everyone to know. It's no longer a thing of survival where I need to volunteer everything that is going on in my life to somebody else. And it is okay for me to not be a role follower all the time. I can be a rebel. I can do things my own way. I don't, just because a rule is it doesn't mean it has to be correct. I can do it my own way. I can pay my own path, and doesn't make me a bad or a wrong person. The other thing that came from, and this is a childhood wound where I felt that as a woman, as a girl, I always had to seek permission from a male figure. And I needed the applause of a male figure, or I needed the backing of a male figure in order to get ahead in life. So all my past managers for a really long time have been men. And good or bad, some have encouraged me a lot, some have pushed me a lot, and some have really helped me on my career path in a good way. But then I ended up in this place where I had these not that great managers who ended up actually being detrimental to my career. And this was a mirror that was being shown to me, which is why I had these people where I felt that I need validation from a male figure. I need for the male figure to see me in a certain light for me to progress. Otherwise, it's all done. So I had to unlearn that pattern, and I had to, in a way, resolve it to understand that I don't need anyone's backing, male or female. I don't need anyone's backing. I'm my own person, and I can do it on my own way. Because in the past, what was happening is I was my good managers, I was kind of using them as handicap and letting them do this work for me. I was letting them be my savior rather than me being my own savior. I hope that makes sense. And that was a big pattern. It was such a big epiphany for me when I learned that pattern. And ever since that time, once I learned the pattern, I noticed that things started shifting in my life. Even in that bad role that I was in with the manager that was it wasn't working out for me, I noticed just The way I showed up at work, the way I interacted started being very different because that dependency cord that I had, I was cutting it off and was coming into myself a lot more rather than needing someone else to serve as this proof for me. It's crazy because sometimes when you find these things, you will notice how these patterns show up in many different areas in your life. I noticed that the same pattern was showing up in some of my friendships, where I was friends with these people who were connectors and who would introduce me to other people. And I was pretty much, my social life was pretty much in their hands because I was like almost dependent on them for it because they were such good friends for me. I felt, oh, they can do all of that for me. And that way I can have my community rather than me creating my own community my own way. It was like crazy how this one pattern was just had weaved its way into the different dimensions of my life. So for you, in your case, if you are noticing these patterns, when you're seeing these loops, I would urge you to ask the question of why is this happening to me? What is it that I'm being shown here? And really vent out all your emotions about that situation. You can do this so many different ways. You can tap, you can journal, you can stand in front of a mirror, you can say your emotions out loud about exactly how you feel about the situation, as illogical as it is, as emotional as maybe just say it all out. The only thing is you need to be open to letting your emotions out completely. You have to be 100% honest with how you feel about that situation rather than talking yourself out of it and being positive about it. Literally go crazy, act like a child, act like a belligerent child who's mad at it. Allow yourself to be mad at it. And once you are done with that, you will notice that the insight will come to once the emotions are gone and you ask yourself, what is it that I'm not seeing over here? And what is the lesson that I need to learn over here? Sometimes it has to do with the fact that you may consider that whatever lesson, it's a shadow side within you where you don't necessarily appreciate that. You don't that thing triggers you. So in my case, when people are breaking rules all the time, that was a trigger for me. And I had to realize that I have a rule breaker within me as well. I'm not a rule follower. We all are one. We all are capable of everything. And I had to embrace that rule breaker side of me in order to become that rebel and to chart my own course and not to follow rules and follow other people all the time. A lot of times people tell me that, yeah, I've had these findings in shadow work, but I still cannot integrate my new identity. And that's because you're likely not cutting cords with the situation, with this new identity that you had perhaps once rejected. So in my case, I had to cut cords with the situation. I had to cut cords with some of the aspects that I was dealing with. I had to cut cords with the fact that I thought that this shadow was bad. I had to cut cords with all of that. So energetically, I had to do that. And when I felt that release, is when I was able to release the whole situation. And that's when I was able to embody the new identity. Embodiment is obviously a whole different thing where you would just rewire, keep saying the same things to yourself over and over again, and you go into a full rampage mode where I would just say, no, I'm a rebel. I've always been a rebel. I love being a rebel. I don't like following other people's rules. I'm not here to follow rules. I'm here to create my own rules. I'm here to write my own book. I'm here to have other people follow me. And I'm here to be a leader. Leaders don't follow rules. Leaders lead. And that is what I'm here to be. Like, you get that? Like, that's like a rampage. So you're like hyping yourself after the emotions are out. And you're letting yourself believe that you're anchoring yourself in the new identity. The other part that I do want to mention is that if you're familiar with human design, we have three awareness centers. So we have an emotional center, we have spleen center, which is like a fear instinctual center, and then we have archana, which is your mind, it's your thinking center. Now, we have noise in all of these three because these are our awarenesses. So when someone says, oh, emotional work is better than energetic work, is better than mindfulness work, it's just not true. You need all three of these. All three of these are as important as the other. In my experience, you need all three of these. And not that you need all three of these every single day, but as and when you feel, oh, wait, I'm getting triggered, that's emotional work. Oh, I'm finding myself resisting to adapting this new thing or going there. That's fear work. I find myself just overthinking this and in a state of analysis paralysis. That's your mind. That's quieting work that you need to do. So all of these three are as important, which is why I feel like I don't like to tie myself as, oh, I'm an energy coach or I'm an emotional coach. I don't like doing that because I feel that all three of these are as important. It's better to go through a transformation by using all the different tools that help you rather than just thinking that one is going to be your answer. Again, another reason why I had to step back from talking about human design completely, because any system that tells you I'm all you need is likely not going to be correct. There's different things that different people find valuable. And yeah, you're going to find that on your path as well, where one thing's going to help you with one aspect of life, the other thing's going to speak to you for the other aspect of your life. And my advice would be to stay open to it and see what helps you and see what opens that awareness within you, where you can heal yourself and not just heal yourself, but also take actions, not just stay there, but move towards your goal. That's important. When we don't move towards our goal, we find ourselves in this state of stagnancy. And that's not what we're here to be. We're here to expand and we're here to rise. So, yeah, with that, I hope this helped. I do want to hear about what your thoughts are about the patterns that you have conquered or a pattern that is ongoing in your life and you cannot for the life of you figure out where that is coming from. I am curious and I want to know, and let's see if we can tackle them together. With that, I hope this video helped. If you've not already done so, be sure to subscribe to my channel and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.